All right. Well, this chapter again is a pretty long chapter, but this is like the last long chapter, I think. We're talking about kidneys, so hopefully you guys are familiar with kidney structure. Okay. Um, okay. Kidney stones. Um, okay. All this is pretty straightforward. I want to go over and make sure you guys understand what happens in a nephron. Okay, first of all, there are two types of nephrons. There's cortical nephrons, okay? These guys are the cortical nephrons. See how they have a very short loop of Henle here that barely passes on to the medulla, as opposed to the juxtamedullary nephron, which goes all the way down, okay? All right. Okay. So let's work on three things: filtration, reabsorption, okay, and excretion. These are the three things that are done by the kidney. Okay. So now we can talk about this stuff right here. Okay. To go through the capillaries. Okay, and into what's called a filtrate. Okay, first of all, remember that the capillaries are fenestrated here, so they have little holes in them. Those little holes open up into filtration slits. Okay, so whatever's small enough to fit through the filtration slit will actually get filtered into the filtrate. Okay, the slits and the pinnacles are a major protein for the filtration of plasma proteins. The defect here causes proteinuria, okay? Proteins in the urine. This is a sign your kidneys are not functioning well. Okay, some of the albumin is filtered out, but it's actively reabsorbed by active endocytosis, okay? Okay. So fluid in the emergent capsule, yes, they're via the hydrostatic pressure of the blood, okay? The colloid osmotic pressure and the very permeable capillaries. These together force a filtration pressure about 10 milligrams of mercury. That's more than the lungs if you want to think about it. Okay, so here is the afferent arterial, efferent arterial. The afferent is bigger than efferent. That puts pressure on these guys to leak out. Okay, so what you see are things that are bigger. The green blobs do not leak out. The things that are smaller, the blue blobs do leak out. Okay, and then they go in the glomerular capsule or Bowman's capsule. Okay, your GFR. Okay, the GFR is 115 to 125 mils. Okay, per minute. If you think about how much that is, okay, that is 180 liters per day. Okay, which means it takes about 40 minutes to filter your entire blood volume. Okay, obviously you're not peeing out that much, and therefore most of it has to be almost immediately returned, okay, to your body, because or else you dehydrate to death. Okay, we'll skip. Wait a second. Okay, we'll skip this too. Okay, obviously sympathetic nervous system prevents blood from going to your kidneys. Okay, all right. All right. Renal autoregulation. The GFR is maintained at a constant level even when blood pressure fluctuates greatly. Okay. So the arterials, afferent arterials dilate if the blood pressure is less than 70. Okay, the afferent arterial constricted, the blood pressure was greater than normal. Okay. Okay. So if the blood pressure is low, your afferent arterials dilate to allow blood to go in, and vice versa. Okay. All right. Included in the ascending loop of Henle is an area called the Macula Densa. Okay, where a rise in water and sodium, okay, occurs when there's an increased blood pressure. Okay, and they send a signal to the constricted afferent arterioles, so the amount of blood going in is about the same all the time. Okay. Okay. Reabsorption, the amount of filtered molecules in the blood. Okay. So what leaks out is water, salt, urine, proteins, sugars, amino acids, small proteins, but amino acids. Okay. All come out because they can fit through the hole. Okay. So you filter out 180 liters of water per day, but only 1 to 2 liters is excreted as urine. Okay. All right. 85% of the reabsorption occurs in the proximal convoluted tubules and the descending loop of Henle. This portion is unregulated, so this will automatically happen. Okay, so the rest of it is where we can tinker with it when we need to. If we want to reabsorb more water, then we can reabsorb more water in the proximal distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct. Okay, if we want to get rid of more water, we can just let that go. Okay, but we have to consciously, or not consciously, but energetically pump back more water if we want to conserve water. Okay. All right. So filtration, most of the reabsorption is actually in the proximal convoluted tubules. Okay, the osmolality of the filtrate of the glomerular capsule is equal to that of blood plasma. Okay, okay, because it's just based on size, right? And almost all the salts leak out, so it's isoosmotic. Okay. Okay. All right. So sodium is actively transported out of the filtrate into the peritubular blood instead of a concentration gradient to drive osmosis. So water will follow sodium. Okay. Okay. So active reabsorption, the active pumping out of sodium, water follows, and so does salt. Okay. All right. So the fluid is reduced to 1/3 of original volume. So 70% of the water is already returned to your bloodstream. Okay. Okay. Additional 20% of the water is reabsorbed through the descending loop of Henle. Okay. The final 15% is reabsorbed later in the nephron under control of antidiuretic hormone. All right. So here, this is a hard concept. It's called the counter current multiplier system. Okay, so show you what the counter current multiplier is. Okay, so current Okay, current goes this way first, okay, and then it goes that way. Okay, so this right here is 300 milliosmolar. Okay, and as you enter into the medulla, okay, you're constantly sucking water out. Okay, if you're constantly sucking water out, well, the filtrate becomes saltier and saltier and saltier. And you're just removing water. So the levels increase. Okay, now you go ascending limb. Okay, the ascending limb, look at how salty this is. Okay, so now I'm pumping salt out, but it's easy to pump salt out because look, it's really salty. And so I'm moving salt out here, 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 here. And as I move salt out, I'm setting up the concentration of salt to be really, really salty here. So now, if I look back at this end, I have a lot of, as I come down, I'm entering saltier and saltier water. And if I'm entering saltier and saltier water, it's easy to pump out water. Okay, so counter current multiplier. Okay. There's a couple of systems that do this in the body. There's one in the kidneys, in fish gills and stuff. They do that too. Bird lungs and stuff. They do that too. So this counter current multiplier system is a very effective way of getting out as much as we can. Okay. Remember, I said the juxtamedullary nephrons have this super long loop of Henle. Okay, they do this a lot with their counter current multiplier. The amount of juxtamedullary nephrons by species is determined by how close we are to water, how much access we have to water. Okay, so like things that live in the desert have a lot more juxtamedullary nephrons, but they need a lot more counter current multiplier systems to actually conserve water. Okay. Why that's not moving. Okay, so let's talk about what the counter current multiplier system is now that you're seeing the picture. Okay, water can't be actively pumped out of the tube. Okay, it will not be isotonic cross if it's not isotonic to extracellular fluid. Remember, saltier and saltier and saltier as you go down, and therefore water keeps coming out. Okay. Okay. So the structure of loop of Henle allows for the ascending portion that's up gradient. Okay. So you're constantly pumping out salt. Okay. Into the area surrounding the loop. Okay, so the bottom of the loop is going to be the saltiest, and then the top is going to be less salty. But as water goes down, it's going to keep leaking out because it's going through an area that's more and more salt. Okay. So the ascending loop of Henle, the walls are not permeable to water, so the only thing that can be pumped across is salt. Okay. Okay. The descending loop of Henle is not permeable to salt, but it is permeable to water. So you're constantly drawing out the water out of filtrate. Okay. Okay, so the more salt the ascending limb removes, the saltier the fluid will enter it. So you'll lose more water in the descending limb, and therefore they keep amplifying each other. Okay. Okay, the Vasa Retina. The Vasa Retina are specialized blood vessels around the loop of Henle, and they work in the juxtamedullary nephrons. Okay, they are special in that they can reabsorb a lot more water and salt. Okay, so same thing. This is a countercurrent exchange. Okay, so these two tubes flow right next to each other. So salt and urea flow from high to low. Water goes from low that way, right? From high concentration of water to low concentration of water. Okay, so you reabsorb salt and water. Okay. So again, countercurrent exchange. Okay. So high salt, low salt. Salt moves this way. If salt moves this way, water moves that way. Okay. All right, the collecting duct. Okay, it's the last stop before urine formation. Okay, we have things called aquaporins. Aquaporins are proteins that allow the tube to get rid of water. Okay, they're usually not expressed at a very high level, so very little water gets reabsorbed. But if you under the influence of ADH, antidiuretic hormone, you make more aquaporins. More aquaporins, more water reabsorption. Okay. 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 Diabetes insipidus. Okay. So that is the disease where you don't respond to ADH. You either don't make enough of it or you don't respond to it. And therefore you make a lot of urine. Okay, polyuria. Okay. All right. Kidneys must also remove excess ions and waste from the blood. This is known as renal clearance. Okay. So, okay. Secretion finishes this process when substances are purposely removed from the peritubular capillaries into the tubules. This occurs in the normal glomerular nephrons. Okay. So not the juxtamedullary nephrons. Okay. So excretion rate is equal to the filtration rate plus the secretion rate minus the reabsorption rate. Okay, so think about it this way. Okay, so I'm gonna filter something. So what I get is filtrate. Okay, that's the filtration rate. The reabsorption rate is the amount of it being reabsorbed. So, you know, these two should almost cancel each other out. And then the secretion is what I purposely dump in to the filtrate to pee out, basically. Okay. So filtration, reabsorption, secretion. Okay, secretion of drugs. Okay, so I'm sure at least some of you guys had jobs where you needed to pass a drug test, and part of the drug test is you peeing in a cup, and this is why. Okay, we secrete drugs or drug metabolites into the urine purposely, and we pee them out. Okay. Okay, indolin is a compound found in garlic, onion, dahlias, and artichokes. And it's easily detectable, and it doesn't do anything to us except we purposely dump it out. Okay, so it's a great marker of glomerular filtration rate because it's filtered but not reabsorbed or secreted. So you can then use that to determine how much is being filtered. Okay. Okay. So the volume of plasma from which a substance is completely removed from the kidneys in 1 minute is GFR. Okay. 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 Source of urea is less than GFR. That means some of it is actually reabsorbed, and that's okay. Uh, so creatinine is produced in muscles, filtered in the kidneys, but not reabsorbed. But it is slightly secreted by the tubules. So that will give you a little bigger GFR than normal. Okay. 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 I don't think you have to know this. Okay. Okay. Glucose and amino acids is easily filtered out in the glomerular capsule. Anything small is easily filtered out. It should be completely reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule via secondary active transport with sodium. Okay. Facilitated diffusion and simple diffusion. Okay. So here, okay, is the membrane. We constantly pump sodium in here, and then we co-transport glucose out. Okay. Okay. If you have a lot of glucose in the blood, then it can't possibly all be pumped out. There's a transport maximum, and therefore you end up with glucose in the blood in the urine stream, and that diabetes. Okay, glycosuria. Okay, and that is a sign of diabetes mellitus. Okay, or diabetes. Okay. In the good old days, you guys used to have to taste the urine. So, be happy for those dipsticks. Okay. All right. Um, I'm going to end this right here. So we will talk more in part